Now let's practice applying some formulas. And the first formula we're going to work with is one to find the midpoint. And what is the midpoint? Well, on a number line, it's the point that's midway between 2 points. It's a point in the middle of the other 2 points. For instance, if we look at values -6 and 4, then the point that's at the midpoint between the two would probably be somewhere in here. Here's the formula we're going to use for the midpoint. Instead of writing midpoint over and over again, we're just going to use this capital M to mean midpoint. Now in the numerator we have an x with a subscript of 1 and an x with a subscript of 2. And this 1 and this 2, they're not operators in any way. They're just trying to say we're going to pick a couple of different values on this number line right here. It's sometimes called the x-axis when it's running horizontal like this. And we're going to pick an x1, that is just one of the values, and then we're going to pick a second value, so we're going to call that x2. So now let's use the formula to find the midpoint for a pair of values, for instance, -6 and 4. The first thing we do is start with our formula, and we have to decide who's going to be our x1 and our x2, and I'm going to make -6 my x1 and 4 my x2, but you could have these the other way around and it's not going to matter. And that's because addition is commutative, which means that the order that you write the terms won't matter. So if you decide to make your x1 the 4 and your x2 the -6, you'll get the same answer that I'm going to get. So once I've decided on my x1 and x2 values, I go back to my formula. I replace x1 with -6. I replace x2 with 4. Now I just follow the order of operations. In the numerator, -6 plus 4 is going to be -2. And then 2 divided by 2 is 1, and the signs are different, so it'll be -1. And that tells me that the midpoint is -1. And if you look at -6 and 4, -1 is in the middle in the sense that it'll take you 5 units to get to -1 if we go from -6 to -1. And it'll also take 5 units to go from 4 to -1 if we head right to left. Here's one for you to try. If we start with our midpoint formula and decide x1 is 4 and x2 is 24, then we replace x1 and x2 with their values, follow the order of operations, and find that 14 is the midpoint. How about this one? Again, if we start with our formula, replace x1 and x2 with our values, and again I've done them the other way around here just to make the point it really won't matter which is the x1 and the x2. I substitute and simplify and find that 7.5 is halfway between -15 and +30. And here's the last one. Starting with our formula, deciding on our values, substituting our values for x1 and x2, and then simplifying, shows that the midpoint in this case is -9.5. Next, let's start applying some formulas for temperature. As we discussed in the previous video, C will stand for the Celsius temperature and F for the Fahrenheit temperature. See if you can answer this question. Since I'm trying to find a Celsius temperature and I've been given the Fahrenheit temperature, I'd begin with this formula, substitute 32 for F, follow the order of operations on the right, and find that water freezes at 0 degrees Celsius. Try this one. Since Canada uses degrees Celsius, and I'm trying to find an accommodating Fahrenheit temperature, I would start with this formula, substitute 20, simplify, and find that I should set the temperature at 68 degrees. And how about here? I've been given a Fahrenheit temperature and I'm looking for a Celsius temperature, so I'd start with this formula, substitute 350, simplify, and find that I should set the temperature of the oven to 177 degrees Celsius. For this next set of questions, A will be the amount owed on a loan in dollars, and T will be the number of months we've been paying on a loan. Use the formula to answer this question. Since 1 year is 12 months, and I'm wondering how much I would still owe, I'll start with this formula, substitute 12 for T, simplify, and find that after a year I would still owe $3,500. How about this one? Here I know the amount and I'm looking for the time, so I'd use this formula and substitute 1,000 for A. It would take 22 months for the loan to drop to $1,000. How about here? I'll pay off the loan when the amount is 0 and I'm looking for a time, so I'll start with this formula, substitute 0 for the amount, simplify, and find it'll take 26 months to pay off the loan. Well, that concludes this video where we have practiced applying formulas.